welcome. You're watching Business Today Television. I'm Sakshi Batra and this is BTS, that's Behind the Scenes, a show where we share a sneak peek into the latest edition of the Business Today magazine with all our viewers. Joining in on this very special edition with me are Krishna Gopalan and Surabhi joining in on the show to discuss with us some of the key insights that have gone into the making of this special edition. And now to showcase a glimpse to all of our viewers as well. Remember, this is a special issue where we have surveyed in the BT tagged survey the best companies to work for in India. And of course, Krishna will be giving us some highlights on that. Krishna, warm welcome to you on this edition. First up, a quick understanding of what this survey has brought about this time around. In this annual survey, what were the key highlights? Which are the top companies that have come onto the top 2 or 3 radar when it comes to the best companies to work for in India?
Thank you, Sakshi. Nice to be here. So this is one of our flagship issues. We work very closely with Tagged on this one. The whole idea is to come up with a list of companies that we think are eclectic. So we look at companies across sectors. So this year we have a fair representation from BFSI, there's tech, there's FMCG, to just name a few, pharmaceuticals of course. So I'm just going to share names of a few companies. ICICI Bank has topped the list this time. The interesting part is we have more than one from the BFSI space. We have HDFC, we have Axis also. Not surprisingly, we have the likes of Google. There's also Hindustan Lever, which is the only company from the FMCG pack which has made it to this particular list. We also realized that with time, the whole set of expectations that an employee has, a potential employee has from a company is also changed. We take that into consideration. We'd like to call it a bit of a happiness index, because if it's a good company to work for, employees need to feel very good about coming in every morning. They need to feel extremely motivated, and we realize it goes a lot beyond money and just ensuring that roles are well defined, the fact that some level of stability is maintained. And from an employer point of view, they want to be sure that as long as the employees work for them, the happiness index therefore translates to output at the absolute peak. Also ensuring that people don't get away very quickly. The attrition levels is something which has plagued corporate India for many years now. They want to keep that at a very manageable level. I just like to bring up one last point here. The issue comes out at a critical time when there's been some level of uncertainty about how the job markets will play out. Yes. So I think to that extent, the list of companies that have been highlighted in this particular issue bear testimony to the fact that regardless of which way the market is looking, these companies will be good companies to work in.
Oh, that's a wonderful insight to share with all our viewers, and I'm sure all of those big pass outs students will be really looking forward to where exactly to look forward where there are job applications coming in as far as the changing dynamics in the world of business are concerned, especially post-COVID, that we've seen that relationship between both employers and employees has actually undergone a major shift, and the way dynamics are changing, it is absolutely essential to really know which are the companies that are actually helping all their employees to move ahead with the times and move along with the times, reskilling them. That's big buzzword as well. But Krishna, in your opening essay as well, you've spoken about how there is a changing dynamic there, how companies are really scrambling to meet the demands of the disruptive post-pandemic business environment as well. And do tell us, if they are looking to bringing in any, newer functions as well, even as they confront any new change in the compositions of the workforce. What is it that you've really found?
So actually, it really comes down to, it's interesting you brought up COVID, and there have been 2 interesting fallouts because of COVID, and both start with letter D. One is digital, the other is disruption. I'm not sure which came first, but the point is we have to live in a world where these 2 words will now become a part of common parlance. This is absolute reality and nothing more than that. I'm just going to take the example of e-commerce. Obviously, the kind of time and money we spend on e-commerce today is a lot more than what it was during the pre-COVID time. Obviously, data costs have fallen, but also I think people realize the convenience factor that comes in with shopping through e-commerce. I'm going to just cut to the consequence of this. The genesis of the story really took place in a chance conversation with Hindustan Unilever, one of the companies we profiled, where the head of HR, Anuradha Rajdan, actually said that 2 years ago, she went out to campuses with a specific profile to look for an e-commerce manager. The trigger took place many years before that, but they also figured they might be losing out on talent if they didn't create this particular profile. This is just one case in point. We're looking across the board where companies in the e-commerce business, like Nykaa for instance, or we just get into a point where hardcore IT companies, each each segment or each job profile is now being specialized or sub-specialized. To share an example, if you had the role of a CIO or the Chief Information Officer, he was there to ensure that the back-end worked very well, we got to the latest technology, which gelled very well with the line of business. But all of a sudden, we are speaking of a whole host of data, a lot of confidential information which has to remain on the server. The Chief Information Officer, therefore, while he exists, will also be accompanied by a new person with a designation called the Chief Information Security Officer. So we're now getting to a zone where as we speak to executive search firms, the consequence of these new profiles being created also means that what we're likely to see in the next 5 years in India Incorporated will suddenly make the last 20 years seem very elementary. That's the nature of disruption we are speaking of. I'm just going to jump to fundraising for a second. The classic fundraising was, it went through the due diligence, the potential investors came in, but now that's become a very specialized function. So a lot of companies actually have a function called the Chief Accounts Officer, where that person does nothing but looking at potential investors, drawing up the plan for fundraising, and making sure the right kind of money comes in. It's not as if the CFO could not do that in the past. It's just that each position has now comes with a certain specialization and a different set of requirements, and that's what makes the whole thing so interesting today.
Absolutely. Now, Krishna, also want to understand, what is it that employees are really looking forward to? Are they also looking forward to perhaps organizations that can aid them in future-proofing their skills, especially with the advent of AI and, unforeseen technologies that would be coming in the few years?
Sakshi, let's be very clear about this. I think the age of an employee spending, let's say, a decade with you or even half a decade, that's a thing of the past. So the job description, therefore, it's just not about making it interesting. It has to be very concise, has to be relevant to the skills that the person has or what the person is interested in. So you can't set up a job description and you then can't hope that somebody is going to come in. You have to recognize the fact that AI, hardcore tech is something that the employee will be interested in. You have to fine-tune your job offering in line with what the potential employee has in mind. So that's a disruption the companies have to necessarily undergo at this point in time. So when I spoke of disruption a while ago, companies need to understand that to keep the employees motivated and relevant over the next 4 to 5 years, this particular facet has to be built on. So be it AI, be it ML, or be it the entire tech portfolio, you have to go a lot beyond than just ensuring that the employees are happy. So you have to keep a happy employee, but to keep the happy employee happy, you have to make sure the tech piece is also completely in place.
Okay, wonderful. So going forward from here, how do you see companies really, and you talked about HUL, that was the best example. Are companies really addressing these concerns at this point in time? Much more needs to be done right now. What have you assessed?
To some extent, yes, but we must also understand there's no precedent for this.
Yeah.
In the past, you could look back and draw upon a wealth of experience. You can't do that here. There'll be a lot of trial and error. There will be a lot of misses you will have at the end of the day, but you must try. I think employees fundamentally like a company that gives it a good shot in the market. It's all very well to say you made a mistake, but the point is when you make an attempt, it just boosts the level of experience on your CV. So I think the recognition of the fact that making a mistake is cool, that's acceptable, is something that's slowly but surely going down well with the employees. So I think they want to work with a company where lots is happening and I get a chance to be a part of the growth story.
That's wonderful to hear. Well, Krishna, thank you so much for that insight. Let me also involve Surabhi into the conversation right here to really understand, what the BT-C Fore Business Confidence survey has highlighted for Q4. Now, this is, remember viewers, a quarterly survey that Business Today does and brings about in the, various editions of the magazines throughout the year, quarterly as it is. This time around, it's to understand what is the health of the economy like, how has it panned out in Q4. So, Surabhi, macro numbers have been consistently improving. You talk about the IIP data, talk about the inflation figures as well. All across the board, we are seeing now IMD talking about a handsome monsoon coming in. So, things are looking positive, but how did the companies really perform in Q4 and what was the key highlight there?
Thank you, Sakshi, for having me here. So, as you mentioned, this is a quarterly survey and this was done for the fourth quarter of last fiscal, sometime in April, where, a lot of top and CXOs were interviewed and surveyed for this. And the surprising thing is that, as you mentioned, that while macro numbers are doing well, we're looking at about 8% growth in last fiscal, and hopefully, you know, slightly lower kind of growth rate in this fiscal at 7% or more. Companies became a little more cautious, and the business confidence index came in at 54.3, which is slightly lower than 56.5, which was quite a high in the quarter before, in the third quarter. So this was quite a surprising finding that we had. But you know, anecdotal data suggests that companies are being cautious because there's uncertainty all around. You know, in the country we have the general elections going on, and in external sector, if we look, then the, you know, export markets remain muted. There continue to be 3 wars now. When the survey was undertaken that time, the latest geopolitical development had not started as of now, but now we have 3 wars going on. So companies seem to be a little bit cautious. They don't know how oil prices, commodity prices will go. So they're just being cautious and watchful as of now, which I think is also translating into business confidence for the fourth quarter as well as the first quarter of this fiscal.
I'm glad that you pointed out about the first quarter of the new fiscal year, because that's what my next question is, because this is the quarter where the general elections are really taking place. Now, of course, there is an uncertainty about which, how many seats will the BJP really get. Erstwhile, before the elections and the phases even started, there was this whole feeling that perhaps this election is just going to be a formality of sorts and a char so par, and, you know, majority is penciled in. But with the lower voter turnout, there is again some uncertainty penciling in. So what is the expectation of businesses in Q1? Is there going to be a key impact there?
So yes, businesses are worried. You know how it is, even a small issue can dent business confidence, especially after the last couple of years that have seen so many, you know, challenges for industry. So in the survey that we did, we asked about 4 pointed questions, and one of them was, you know, whether they expect the general elections to impact their performance and operations in the first quarter, and as many as 73% of them said that yes, they do expect it to have an impact on their business. So yes, I think everyone is on a wait and watch mode in terms of the general election, and in terms of, you know, hiring outlook and profits also, the business confidence index showed that it's slightly muted in the first quarter of this fiscal. And apart from the general election, there also remain concerns about, you know, rural demand, whether it's going to see a revival this fiscal, especially with, you know, monsoon seem to be above normal, above average. And the other big worry which continues is, you know, when is the RBI going to cut rates, and which also seems delayed, and most respondents to the survey said that they don't expect it in the first half of the fiscal year.
Okay, well, on that note, thank you so much, Surabhi, and thank you so much, Krishna, for sharing these insights with us. Clearly, a cracker of an edition that everybody can really expect to see. On the one hand, which are the best companies to really work for, a survey on that, and on the other, what are the existing businesses really facing in terms of the macro environment and the health of the economy, and how do they really see things panning out in the new fiscal year as well. A complete understanding, or a 360-degree view of the economy at large right now. Many thanks for being with us on this very special edition, viewers, but do stay tuned, as Business Today Television will continue to get you all the insights from the world of business and finance. Until then, many thanks for tuning in.